thank you very much for staying for the second half of our program. I'm glad most of you have stayed. The next session is our actual commercial PV insurance policy wording. So our marketing team, headed by Xolile Kahla, will take you through each section of the policy. And then in the final session, we are going to talk about claims in this space with our claims manager, Shelley Ann Wachika. So I'm going to hand you over now to my colleagues behind me to take you through the policy wording itself. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Xolile Kahla. I'm the underwriting manager at Firedart. Thanks again for sticking out into the afternoon. Firedart has been offering this product for at least the last 4 years. And over the years, we've had good and bad experiences with the product. And we took a decision to review the wording in the last 6 months, I'd say. Firstly, we looked initially at our claims, got in touch with some of the industry professionals. We had Mr. Charles earlier, and it was very eye-opening. Sometimes questioning, should we be continuing to offer the cover? Because I'm sure all of you heard all the different intricacies that that come into building these solar plants. So I'll do a quick intro. Let's see. Okay. So this is in no way intended as a training session, just an overview of what the different sections entail within the product. We are certainly available to go a little bit deeper, whether it's on the performance warranty section, BI section. Get in touch with us and we'll go into the nuts and bolts of the cover. I'll hand you over to my colleague Tandega to take you through the first section. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tandega Ngogo, and I am the junior marketer and underwriter. Who is Firedart? Firedart was established in 2001. Firedart underwrites engineering risk on behalf of Campus Insure. We are proud to be one of the oldest engineering UMAs in South Africa. Our partners are Campus Insure, Hanover Re, and Larius. We have a different number of engineering products, such as your contract works, offered as a risk insurance cover for construction projects, offered on a once-off and an annual basis, plant or risk, comprehensive cover for vehicles involved in construction projects. Here we cover mostly yellow metals, such as your dozers, your excavators, and your cranes. Then those solar plants, we are dealing with this cover today. And then we have machinery breakdown, and then we have dismantling, transit and erection, and computer and electronic equipment, and advanced loss of profits. Okay, our cover, once and for our brokerage. Our key target audience is any business that's involved in construction and engineering, where we can provide a unique personal service by understanding our clients' needs and ensuring that the correct tailor-made cover is provided. Firstly, supply insurance products via intermediaries. Secondly, we have a hands-on executive team. Thirdly, we offer broker-partnered services such as site visits, quotes, and large renewals. And lastly, our partnership with brokers extends through quoting, underwriting, and claim stages. Thank you. Over to you, Angie.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Angie Randall, the Regional Marketing Manager for KZN and the Free State. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be taking you through our exciting commercial photovoltaic product today, which is rather unique in the industry. This policy has been designed to cover PV plant that has been installed according to national building regulations and the necessary engineering standards, and extends to include your technical peripherals, such as your plant-specific fasteners, your transformers, inverters, cabling, and the likes. As you'll see, we have 4 sections available. The first one being Section A, which is our erection or risk or construction or risk cover. This covers the PV and equipment during the installation and testing phase. Then our second option is our Section B, which is operational or risks, which covers the PV and equipment systems whilst in operation. Then following on, we have Section C, which is your business interruption, which covers the financial losses following an indemnifiable loss. And lastly, and most exciting, is our Section D, the performance warranty, which Xolile will be going into detail about. This covers the reduction in the warranted energy yield output. Okay, so the intention of this product is to give you cradle-to-grave cover, ensuring a seamless solution that provides coverage with the beginning of the installation of the PV system right through to the subsequent operations. I'm going to take you briefly through the first section, which is our ERR, or erection or risk section, Section A, and then my fellow colleagues will be taking you through the other sections in more detail. Okay, so what is the objective of an erection or risk policy? This is to provide cover during the erection construction phase, including the testing phase. You do get extensions, such as your dismantling, your inland transit, testing, and the likes listed here. An important point I'd like to emphasize is the basis of indemnification, which gives the insurers the right to reserve the option to repair, replace, reinstate, or pay cash in lieu of an indemnifiable loss, which you'll find pretty standard in the industry. On to the exclusions under the policy. Due to time restraints, I'm not going to go through all of them. I will just touch on a few that we'd like to highlight. Firstly, being loss or damage due to defective workmanship, material, design, or plan. This is specifically excluded. However, the resultant damage that's free of the defect would be covered. Next, any inexplicable loss of theft that is only revealed at stock take is also excluded. There has to be an identifiable event for this cover to be triggered. And then last one is the total cessation of work. If work is stopped or there is abandonment for 90 consecutive days or more, the cover automatically expires. So that's quite an important exclusion to please be aware of. Okay, next I'm going to hand you over to Corinne, and she will be taking you through the operational risks. Thank you very much. Over to you, Corinne.
Thanks, Angie. Good afternoon, everyone. So yes, I'm Karen. I'm the Regional Marketing Manager for the Cape Regions, but I'm based in the friendly yet windy city of Gqeberha. And I'll be taking you through our operational all risk section. So I'll give you a high-level overview, which will consist of 3 sections. It's your property damage, your machinery breakdown, as well as your public liability cover. So once a solar plant has passed the testing and commissioning, the whole project will move from construction, so erection, which my colleague Angie discussed with you, to the operational phase. The solar plant owner, who has the insurable interest, will take out this operational all risk cover, which will take effect on the operational date confirmed or stated on the schedule. So the first section is property damage, which covers loss or damage to the PV property for the repair, replacement, or reinstatement, or making good of the property insured. So just to quickly briefly revisit what the property insured is referring to. So that's your photovoltaic plant, including the technical peripherals. So that's your plant-specific fasteners, your cabling, your PV panels, your measurement equipment, inverters, transformers, your batteries, and then of course if you do have any surveillance PC equipment or CCTV monitoring, which is specifically for the solar plant, that will be considered your property insured. In terms of the perils. So it is an all-risk cover. So loss and damages caused by perils such as fire, storm, your hail, lightning, wind, and then of course theft and malicious damage, as well as accidental damage, will be covered under this section, unless specifically excluded on the policy and not limited to. There are, however, some specific exceptions under this section, such as wear and tear or gradual deterioration, defective workmanship, design, plan, or specification, and then your electrical and mechanical derangement or any financial loss of any kind, but to name a few. Next slide. So yes, there's some specific clauses that are included under this section for property damage, and they are your reinstatement conditions, replacement capacity conditions, disposal of salvage, replacement parts, as well as your tenants clause. Just for the sake of time, I'm not going to elaborate or unpack them each, but it is available and will be available on our training platform as well as our wording. Then the insurance also extends to include your public authorities requirements, your professional fees, incompatibility, and that's for modification or additional cost incurred to maintain normal operation. And then just to move on to our second section under our operational all risk, and that is our machinery breakdown. And this covers your unforeseen and sudden physical damage to machinery, such as your inverters, your batteries, your panels, as well as surveillance PC equipment, if you do have that as the insured. And this will cover you or the machinery at work. It will cover it at rest, or while it's being dismantled at the insured's premises. And when we refer to dismantling, that will be for the purposes of cleaning, inspection, overhauling, perhaps positioning it to a different area. And then, of course, if it's at a repairer temporarily, or perhaps at the manufacturer's premises. There are some specific exclusions, which I'll just highlight, just a few. Fire and lightning strikes, there you can refer to obviously your property damage section. Theft, any natural disaster, wear and tear from usage, loss of delays or any interruption of the business, and then any faults or defects that were known to the insured. Those are excluded under this section. Then just to briefly touch on the basis of indemnification under the machinery breakdown section. So similar to what Angie mentioned earlier, the insurer does reserve the option to repair, replace, or reinstate any damage indemnifiable, or pay cash in lieu. The cost of replacing or reinstating with machinery that is identical in every respect is covered for new machinery if totally destroyed. And then just to elaborate on what is regarded as new machinery, so that will be machinery that has been installed for the first time, but the period from the installation or erection has not exceeded 3 years. An escalation percentage will also be applied, and in the event of the installed new replacement value exceeding the sum insured on the schedule, an average provision will also then be applied accordingly on the claim. Then the specific clauses under the machinery breakdown, so it's your capital additions, and includes for additional machinery of like to that specified in the schedule and installed on the insured's premises, your declaration procedure and premium adjustment, and the claims prep costs. Then we get to our last section under operational all risk, and that is our public liability. And very important to point out, it's not on the slide there, but this cover is on claims made basis. So it does cover claims that are reported during the term of the policy. And this cover is in respect of any legal liability to third parties for any accidental bodily injury or death, or any accidental loss or damage to third-party property, and of course arising directly out of the performance of the insured contract. The cover can be extended to include your legal defense costs and then your arrest, assault or defamation, as well as your emergency medical expenses. And then finally, I'd just like to highlight some of our exclusions under our public liability section. And this cover excludes, of course, any person employed by the insured. They won't be regarded as third party. Any liability caused by vibration or by the removal or weakening of, or any interference with support to land or structure. The cost of making good any faulty workmanship, materials or design in any part of the insured property. Those are really only to name a few. So yeah, that's a wrap of our operational all risk cover on a very high level overview. And I now hand over to my colleague Xolile, and he will be taking us through the business interruption and the performance warranty sections. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Karen. You will note that the past sections have been dealing mainly with the material damage claims or material damage indemnity. These last two sections deal with resulted financial loss. As you can imagine, these items cost lots of money to put into place, and normally the principal or the operational contractors depend on that revenue stream that comes in. First port of call of protection for these operators would be our BI section. Now, this will cover any O&M contractor for any damage that is covered, for any resultant financial loss, which is as an exact consequence of what is covered under the operational section, not the EAR, just the fire and material MB sections. You got a bit of cover here. Very important to note what we look out for up front. We need an annual revenue to be provided to us. What sort of indemnity period you're looking at covering. Also important to note what is your agreed feed-in tariff, which will link up your yield produced versus the actual revenue stream that you get out of each location. Under this section, average will apply, and this will be taken into account when it comes to claim stage. This cover, though, does become voidable should a business come under liquidation. This part of the policy would fall away at that time. There are specific conditions that we need to be aware of during the operational time that will be taken into account during the claim settlement stage. Very important to note. Following on to the BI section is, I think, quite a unique product that has been developed with Firedart, obviously with our partners Hanover and Campus, which is a performance warranty. Also a financial loss type cover, dealing with any reduction in energy yield produced by that plant. Now, when you do produce a plant, you put a line in the sand and say, I'm producing so many megawatts a year. Now, this cover will give you a sleep easy whereby if any drop in that energy happens during that period, then this cover comes into place. But important to note that this is an annual cover, which will be reviewed over a 12-month period. So if you have a drop in 1 month, we'll still need to look at if you maybe can pick it up over the balance of that 12-month period. This is a specific perils-based cover. It's not all risk like the other sections. Solar radiation is covered if there's any drop in that. There is a sleep easy, this what will be provided under the performance warranty section. Now, solar radiation relates to the amount of energy from the sun that is produced per unit area. And that changes, obviously, based on where you are located away from the equator. We've got cover for that. Secondly, any internal degradation, specifically on the inverters and the panels, we've got cover. You would have seen that this was excluded under the fire and perils cover, we've got resultant damage, financial damage cover related under the drop in energy here. Still under this section, the EPC's installation work while they are installing a specific plant, if there's any errors during that time, maybe a panel is not put at the correct angle as the design, and your yield in energy drops, you've got a bit of cover here that's provided. And lastly, any unintentional errors by the design engineer when the initial design of this plant location is done. That versus what we actually achieve on the ground, there's additional indemnity provided here. Specific to note under the performance warranty, I'll go through some of the exclusions that we would not be liable for. Now, as you can imagine, during a operation of the plant, there'll be times when certain sections need to be maintained. If any panels are taken down for maintenance or some of them have broken down, there's no cover under this policy for that. Any specific changes to the design, maybe the number of panels is reduced or the locations of the panels are changed, that is not indemnifiable here. Something that's quite critical, which we have been seeing, is the measuring equipment. Sometimes that stuff fails. So if there's no recording that's been happening due to these measuring equipment failing, it's excluded under cover. OEM standards or even industry standards not being followed during the operation of the plant, that is excluded from the cover. Load shedding issues, ESCOM issues, we are all aware of that. Any losses to our produced power, that is excluded. Very important as well is during the operational time, trees grow which were not in place, which can cause additional shading onto panels. As you can imagine, this will reduce how much energy falls onto those PV panels. That will reduce your yield. That is excluded from the cover. Change in energy in feed-in tariff. If at inception you had agreed on R1.70 per kilowatt hour with your principal, and that drops down to R1.60, that is certainly not something we'd like to cover. And lastly, I think all the other ones are pretty standard market exclusions. Now, when we issue this policy, these conditions are quite critical, and with each one that we get involved in, obviously when you look at the claims, we see the importance of having in place a O&M maintenance contract. Now, this won't just deal with cleaning the panels. Some of these critical items like your inverters have specific OEM requirements regarding maintenance. This item must be taken down every 3 months and inspected. All of those need to be followed, planned for upfront, and an agreement be in place with someone with the requisite experience that can conduct a good job when it comes to that maintenance. Now, obviously, the precautions during the operation time need to be adhered to at all times. Very critical to the cover. Lightning protection for these items, they are outside, open to the atmosphere, so very exposed to natural hazards. Critical to have each and every installation linked to a lightning protection system. However, we do provide a lightning warranty in the wording that upfront, but it's very important to have this protected by a lightning protection system. You've heard that these supporting panels are made of aluminum, metal, so they attract lightning. So this needs to be taken care of and made aware of. Minimum for us, we need written records of your quarterly output. Earlier it was mentioned that at least monthly you need that monitoring, but at claim stage, when it comes to adjusting a claim, we'd need at least your quarterly records of how much you produced, when was your downtime, when was maintenance being done. Hence, those are the times where output would not have been, energy would not have been produced or sold to the clients. Now, this would also include your monitoring and data usage. This is normally an off-site function, sometimes done by a third party. Most plants have this as a outsource to third parties for people who have the experience. On some projects, it's just one guy in a laptop at the plant, but it's very critical to monitor how each plant is producing. Important for us as well, we also have specific referrals to our reinsurance partners. So these are items, plant types, which would take a bit longer to underwrite. Critical is we look at plant outputs up to 5 megawatts. If it's bigger than that, we need to get our reinsurers involved for them to approve. So just expect a bit slower turnaround when it comes to those. Also important is your ground-mounted solar plants. Those are a referral for us. We take a bit more time to review those, and it's a referral to our reinsurance partners. Thank you very much. I hope that was quite informative.
Don't run away now, Krili. Ladies and gentlemen, can we take questions now on our policy wording, and then we'll go on to the next section. So please feel free to ask. May I have the roaming mic? And participants on the virtual platform, you can post your questions, and we'll take it from there.
Xolile.
Hello, sir.
Can you just elaborate to me on two things, please? The lightning protection system, is that like a lightning mask, or what kind of lightning protection system are you referring to? And then for the maintenance contract, I actually discussed this with Charles earlier, and there isn't really any sort of maintenance contract per se, apart from replacing the inverters once in 10 years. There's not anything that they offer as a standard in the form of a maintenance contract. So what kind of maintenance would you guys require? Thank you.
Thank you. Relating to the lightning protection system, it's important to note that these plants are installed all over the country, different conditions, different locations. So your lighting resistivity from one location to the next can be very different. I think the important thing for us is each location must be considered, such that the design engineer who's doing the installation at design takes into account what's the lightning strikes for this area, what can I put into place to mitigate that risk. That's the important thing for us. We cannot put in a blanket requirement to say that what suits location in Hoedspruit suits what we install in Johannesburg. Very important to note. And to your second question regarding O&M, we would follow what the OEM, the producer of that item, requires. If he says he wants a minimum of how many services per year, that's the critical. What has been agreed between the contractor on site and the principal or the owner. So obviously, depending on the type of installation, that can also be quite different. Very critical is the cleaning of the panels, though. That goes without saying. In an area with soot next to a power station, you expect a lot of soiling to happen on those panels versus something that's out here in the beautiful sunshine of Sandton. So your requirements for the two different locations will differ. What's important is at the plant, you've considered your exposures, and these are what you're doing as the plant owner to mitigate those that damage occurring prematurely. I hope that assists. I think Jose wanted to say something.
I would just like to compliment Xolile's statements there to this gentleman to answer him with regards to lightning protection. You know, South Africa's got a chronic activity. If you look on SANS 10142, next to I, it will express very clearly the zoning and which areas are mostly affected. and it all depends on, like you say, location and so forth. So it is of paramount importance that you're not only looking at it from a direct lightning strike, but also electromagnetic compatibilities of the region. And as you know, with time, our atmospheres are becoming more and more contaminated. And as a result of that, lightning activity and effects of lightning activity become more pronounced. So you need to take into consideration and apply those factors of the sands. So it is important to cover your plant. And with regards to the O&M side of things, it depends on type of technologies that you apply. If you're looking at an inverter, for example, predominantly an inverter is every 4 to 5 years you need to do some maintenance on it. Okay, so whether it's a transformerless or a centralized inverter, which are the two basic technologies that you can apply to your plant. So those are one of the things. The others is also your cable network. You always got to make sure that the insulation of the network has not decayed over time. So those are the maintenance portfolios that an O&M would then put in place, with regards to the handover documentation, I think that's basically it.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll just take a question from the virtual audience and one from you, and we'll alternate. Almarie Richardson says, or asks, is the lightning protectors only for the performance warranty section?
No, those conditions that I mentioned at the end really relate to the whole operation of all the different sections. We've seen a lot of claims under the operational cover which relate to lightning. So even there is a requirement just to protect your asset a bit clearer, a bit better. So it does apply to all the various sections.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation from the team. I have 3 questions, but mine are very simple, not very technical. The first one is we are a new sort of broker. We have a fairly new relationship with Firedart, so we're not very familiar with your product offering. Question 1 is, what are your treaty limits? We operate in a space where, in the mining space, so to speak. So we have clients that are doing the actual mining and they're venturing into renewable energy. So if we look at Firedart, we obviously would want to know to what point can we place business with you. And then the second question would be your territorial limits as well. What sort of territories do you guys cover? And then the last question is for Prisha. It is not underwriting related. For us as new brokers with Firedart, what sort of broker support do you guys give?
Thanks for those. Relating to our treaty capacities, I would say we target small to medium up to the commercial size. We by no means a corporate underwriter. I prefer not to give you the actual numbers in terms of our treaty capacity, but I'll say that we found them quite adequate for this target that we look at. I think they hit the sweet spot quite a lot. Regarding the second question was, please remind me?
Territorial.
Okay, territorial limits. Southern Africa, up to the equator, we can pretty much assist you when it comes to that. However, we found that most of our client base has been based south of the Limpopo River, so we've been concentrating a lot within South Africa, but we are certainly have the pen to right north, and we're slowly going into the rest of the continent.
Thank you. Maybe if I can also just add another question.
Okay.
How is Firedart, what's the right term here? How are you dealing with the issue of theft cover if there is load shedding on a particular policy? I'm assuming that your policy requires you to have an armed alarm, but if there is load shedding, how are you treating that? Thank you.
Do you mind answering the other question before I take this one?
Okay, I'm going to answer the previous question first in terms of broker support. So as I said previously, I mean, we do recognize that your success is our success. We do a lot in terms of broker support. That includes training, risk surveys where we accompany brokers to risks. We accompany brokers to the client. Remember, we can't be client-facing. A broker has to be present all the time. So we will go with you to a client visit so that we can provide the expertise with you. In many cases, we do a lot of hand-holding because we recognize that this is engineering insurance and this requires specialist skills. So when we need the engineers in that space, people like Mr. X, we will provide that to you. We have no problems with the training, giving you material, really upskilling brokers, so that they could have intelligent conversations with their clients. But it's anything you need, really. I think I would encourage you to come to us and we start having those conversations and let's see what we can do in that space. So let's do a first coffee and let's see what we can do. Okay.
Just maybe to add on that, remember we are generalists as well, but we do have access to people who do this every day. You met Charles earlier. Our loss adjusting network is quite wide, where we have chemical engineers in mining to chemical engineers that you deal with, and we certainly can put you in touch with those people to assist you on your specific issues, whether it's related to your business and further to your clients. Regarding Simba's question on, it relates to security. As I mentioned, we cover all sorts. So we will cover items, plants that are on the ground, panels that are on a 12-story building like this one. So as you can imagine, your security requirements vary vastly. And obviously at the time of design, we need some sort of indication that you have put something in place. We never specify that you need an alarm for this, as an example. What we try to do, we say you need adequate security for your site. Obviously, once claims do start coming through and it's found to be inadequate, then obviously we need to review the level of protection that you've provided. We have had claims due to lack of proper, or let me say adequate security, and we try to work together with the client in that to improve that going forward. Thank you.
Is there any more questions? Okay, another question. Can we look at additional increases in cost of working under the business interruption?
Thanks for that. Additional ICAO is a standard cover that we have under the BI section. You don't need to request it. It is there. All what it says is we need reasonable precautions being taken once a claim has occurred. So that cover is available already under the solar BI section.
The next one is, do you have a list of preferred products?
Yeah, that's something we're working on. You saw earlier there's different tiers of products. This one related to solar panels. We're developing one for your inverters as well, quite critical. We haven't finalized this. Once that is finalized, we'll certainly share with our broker partners when it comes to preferred products. However, it's important to note there's vast differences coming in from a tier 1 to a tier 2 type product. And South Africa being quite a not as developed market, we're still getting there when it comes to getting the correct products onto the ground. But it's something we certainly working on as a company.
Anyone else? Oh, Xolile, do you insure body corporates?
Yeah, that's not an easy one. I'd say yes and no. Remember, this is a commercial product. So ideally, we want to ensure a commercial entity that oversees multiple installations. We have had approaches where body corporate with very few installations, let's say 6 homes, we try to stay away from that. We look at volume. The target for this product is your commercial entities, really. So we will look at body corporates depending on how it's structured and the size.
I don't have any more questions here. Does anybody have anything from the floor? I think at this point, perhaps maybe one or two of you maybe want to share your experience in this place. Some of our brokers do have commercial PV insurance clients. If you are willing, would you like to share some of your experience with this? Anyone?
Thanks. It's Cass here. I'd like to share that certainly it seems like the difficulties that are being experienced is with lightning. So lightning is a big issue. The vulnerabilities with inverters, they're causing quite a bit of problem. And theft with solar panels, we're talking about theft, Simba, is the ground-mounted versions, and that's where you have the vulnerabilities as well. So I think these are the difficulties, is lightning. And the lightning protection has to be a separate independent system that is installed. I'm trying to think of others now. Yeah, I think that's it. The commentary on where the exposures seem to reside at the moment. Okay?
Cass, can you just pass the mic to the front row, please?
I'm not going to stand up, don't worry. So just a comment from me, obviously, I've been having a journey with Firedart for a good number of years with our one client that we've got, and I have to compliment the team in the background that's always available and willing to assist, specifically when it comes to claims. And we've got a nationwide client, and so they're all over, and we even had the lady from Kahla actually went through to one of our clients to go check out what was going on there, and it wasn't even in Grahamstown, or maybe sorry, I can't even say that name. But yeah, I have to be complimentary to you guys and the team. You've always been supportive of us, and I thank you for that. And also being willing to look at claims as they come in and not just have one size fits all, as Xolile said. It's all good. Thank you so much.
I would like to just answer some of the questions that Kaz raised recently with regards to lightning, with regards to inverter failures and theft. You know, the national code of practice for this commodity is very clear, and it expresses that if you have a ground-mounted structure, the first thing, it must be secured, must be fenced off, because of the risk of potential leakage currents that could affect people in the surrounding areas, including domestic animals like dogs and so forth. So we have to protect every single thing. So that is one of the areas. And then, of course, because of the value of the asset, you would want to try and secure it with an inverter a securing fence with an alarm and so forth because of the asset value. That's the other prescribed requirement that they would want you to have. It's just like a normal power plant, like a Tutuka power station and so forth. You know, it gets classified under the Generation Act, so you have to do that. Then, of course, with regards to lightning, as we had explained earlier on, every area, depending on the mineral deposits which it actually hosts and also the soil consistencies like iron ore and so forth, attracts lightning in the various areas differently. So you would need to have a proper earthing structure. So that would then, you'd have to do a study on SANS 10199 and or SANS 10292, which you would have to have all those prescribed requirements in place, which would then help you assist in your design of your power plant so that you can avoid things like capacitive coupling, which is the biggest fears and damages that get to happen with regards to the failure of inverters. So those are small things that do happen and needs to take into consideration. That's why normally, and I believe all like yourselves would ask the design engineer or the EPC to provide you with all the relevant documentation and calculations for you guys to be able to underwrite and to mitigate risk. Because I think that's what you guys are all about here, is to try and identify the risk factor and to mitigate that risk so that the plant is well covered for starts, and secondly, that you have mitigated all the potential evils that the actual technology advocates, which is very limited to the general public nowadays, because it's a new technology, it's a new thing, so very few people know a lot about the actual technology and all that until it actually 5 years down the line you start to realize, we should have considered this, considered that. So lightning is a very important facet that needs to be considered because that's around us. Much less at the coastline, okay, but more inland. When you start reaching altitudes above 1,000 meters, it becomes more prominent. But grounding, your earthing, and so forth, those are paramount because a surge arrestor, switching like, for example, with load shedding, it's going to happen more and more because the breakdown of the network's insulation is happening every day. For every load shedding you're having, the network is decaying proportionately according to the load. All right, so that decays, so you have to have surge protection in there to absorb and to basically evacuate that energy into the Earth's crust. And again, lightning can be 20 kilometers away, 100 kilometers away. It depends on the soil resistivity from there to here. If it's 1 ohm and it discharges 100,000 amps, 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers away is going to have the same impact. So you have to consider all these parameters in your design. So lightning is very important, and which affects the performance of the inverter, the grounding, which is the earthing, very important. I mean, any protection that you implement needs a reference to ground. If you don't have that, you will never have. You can have a surge arrestor there, but it's not going to do any work. So that's basically what I would say, yeah.
This is not a question, I think it's a comment really from Almarie Richardson. She says, if a business installs a solar system and they have business interruption under the commercial policy, we need to have additional increase in cost of working. For example, to use a generator for fuel or diesel costs, for example. Do you want to comment on that?
No, certainly a fair comment. However, it's always important and critical at our current structure of our wording is that you must have the BI section first. So we cannot issue standalone increased cost of working for those type of scenarios. But if you've got BI, you certainly have that cover to assist you when there is a breakdown to hire in a generator, whether it's diesel or gas, into your site.
Is that, does anyone else have any questions? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, you can see that is it's a comprehensive cover. As Angie said, that it is designed to be from cradle to grave, designed from erection stage right up until when your actual plant is operational and in a working order. So that concludes that. We're going to take a 5-minute break just so that we can get set up for our panel discussion. So you can stretch your legs, get something to drink, and we'll be back in 5 minutes.